Right, so hey guys, the Conservative Party has just finalized its shortlist of 3 finalists basically that are trying to get the party's candidacy for the mayoral election that's going to happen next year. And the winning candidate will actually be announced on the 18th of July after a series of hustings and ballots by party members. So I thought I'd take this moment to have a look at the current candidates that we have that are vying for that position of Mayor of London to replace Sadiq, and I'll try and look into where they all stand in terms of ulez. Now, ulez being, of course, the ultra low emission zone. So many times I put up these videos and I'm just saying ulez, and then I have somebody commenting saying, what's ulez? And I'm like, where have you been, under a rock? But okay, fair enough, you know, that's an assumption on my part. Ulez stands for ultra low emission zone. By the way, just to reiterate and reaffirm, this is not a political channel, right? I'm a motoring journalist and automotive content creator. I cover all things to do with the motorists and the car community. I'm not advocating any party, and I'm not advocating any candidate as such. And I won't be telling you who to vote for. I'm just trying to bring you whatever information that I can in order to help you make an informed decision by yourself. So that's just declaring my neutrality as such, or objectivity as such. Although I have to confess, and I've said this before, I am the brown car guy, I am a car guy, and I'm always going to be looking out. I'm always going to be pro-motorist, and I'm always going to be pro-car. But anyway, let's look at what's going on here. Now, I've got to say, while I've interviewed some of the people that had put their names forward for the original selection process for the Conservative Party, I've actually, during some of the protest coverage that I've done, I actually got to talk to a few of those people, and I did interview them in the past, but I have not spoken to these 3 finalists that have actually now been nominated. But I'd love to do so. So that's an open invitation to them. And indeed, in fact, any of the candidates that are standing up for mayor, including the current mayor, of course, I would be happy to talk to them about ulez and London's transportation needs. Very much so. However, the way that I've had to go about this video, because I haven't spoken to those candidates in particular, is that I've basically done some research online. So until the opportunity comes to interview those candidates, so this is based on research that I've done online, basically to try and find out what their stance is on ulez, and also including the positions of the other known candidates at this time. And I'll go through all of that right after this.
A brown car guy.
Right, so let's of course start with Sadiq Khan, and of course Labour Party and Sadiq Khan, the current Mayor of London, still insist that he will be standing for re-election. However, there was a newspaper report which I covered in a previous video in which there is a strong indication that he will not. And to me, actually that makes sense, because it's been widely discussed that he's now probably the most hated mayor of London ever. And, you know, hence he has to go around in armored cars with a full security detail, and by all accounts refuses to engage with regular Londoners, you know, just ignores them altogether, which, you know, is not a great look for a mayor that's supposed to be representing us. And I include myself in us because, of course, I am a Londoner. Personally, I personally still believe that Labour will ask him to step down and not contest the next election, and the logic behind that is very simple, because they know they will lose, and of course they don't want to lose. So I think that that's what will happen, and whatever candidate that they will put forward will probably claim to be cancelling the ulez expansion, because I know that that's another thing that, of course, they should know by now, if they have any kind of understanding of what the public is feeling, is a very hated policy. So it's very likely that whatever Labour candidate comes forward for the mayoral election, they probably will start out with a promise to cancel ulez, but be in no doubt whatsoever that it will not be a cancellation, it will be a delay, because we all know where Labour stand on these things. They want to, you know, basically reduce private car ownership and use in general. This is a fact. and basically, unless you're really rich, you will not be able to afford and run a car in the utopia of parties like Labour and also other parties. And in fact, it's fair to say that there are candidates standing for this that are even more anti-car than Labour and any of Labour's candidates. In fact, let's look at two extremes of the situation, and let's start with the Green Party. So in the Green Party, Zoe Garbett is the candidate for the mayoral election. And of course, the Green Party's position on this is fairly obvious. They will price you out of your car faster than you can say, pump number 4, please. I mean, that's we know that is their agenda. Now, she has said that she supports expanding ULEZ, no surprise there, to cover all of Greater London, but wants greater financial support for owners of non-ULEZ compliant cars. Now, potentially that means that she wants more funds for the scrappage scheme, and that will just wastefully destroy perfectly usable cars and be disastrous for the environment, as I have discussed in my previous video, previous ULEZ update on this channel. Go check it out. I'll put a link below as well. And frankly, all I've got to say to that is, well, shame on you, Green Party. However, it's also fair to say that that alternative could mean funding things like getting more people onto public transport and getting them riding bicycles, maybe like subsidies to buy bicycles or something like that. I wouldn't put it past them. And on the plus side, for some people, she does want to introduce free public transport for young people. There's no definition of what young people actually means, i.e. what the age cutoff is, but that's what she has said apparently. Now, like I said, two extremes, right? So that's the Green Party, and then the polar opposite to that, we have Howard Cox of Reform UK, or rather he's standing from Reform UK, the party. And I actually have interviewed him, so I've had a few words with him at one of I think it was the last Trafalgar Square protest video that I did, where I also spoke, and I think I did an interview with him there. Now, of course, he is the guy that runs Fair Fuel UK campaign, and I think there's no question here, there's no doubt that he's probably the most motorist-friendly candidate that is going to be standing for the mayoral election. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He has pledged to scrap ULEZ in its entirety. So not just the expansion, but entirety, like even the ULEZ that currently exists in central London and inner London, he would scrap all of that. And he also wants to abolish low traffic neighborhoods, or LTNs as they call, unless local communities want them there. So his idea is to approach businesses and local residents and say, is this a good thing? Do you like it? Do you want it? And if they say no, that's scrap it, get rid of it. So, and I'm guessing that he's not a fan of 15-minute cities either. LTNs, 15-minute cities, and things like that have been covered in a previous video on this channel. If you're not quite sure what they are, just search for them on this channel, and I do explain all of those things. And it's also, it's worth saying also that since Fair Fuel campaigns are to reduce fuel duty for the motorists, then that's potentially another plus. And he's also said that he's very concerned about drivers across the country becoming increasingly seen as pariahs, the devil incarnate, and an easy cash target. And there, he's certainly talking my language. I totally agree with him on that. And yeah, I think that we really need to combat this warped view of the car and of motorists. So let's look at other candidates, or potential candidates, I should say. Now, the Liberal Democrats hasn't actually announced a candidate yet, and they won't do that until next month. So until July, we won't know who's standing on behalf of the Lib Dems. And there was talk of the former Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, who's basically now excommunicated, I think, from the party, isn't he, altogether? He's even had the whip taken off him, hasn't he? And there was talk of him standing as a candidate. To be fair, I think that's extremely unlikely that that's going to happen, and I don't necessarily think it would be much help to us, the motorists, even though it should be pointed out that his brother, Piers Corbyn, of course, has been a very active campaigner against ULEZ and a number of other things, but certainly, like, ULEZ as well. So let's finally come to the Conservative candidates, or rather the shortlisted Conservative candidates, and let's look at them. and also I think it's worth pointing out, or worth saying at this point, that if we're going to be absolutely frank and honest on this, based on, well, logic and previous history, I think it's fair to say that the next mayor of London is probably going to be from one of the two major parties. Realistically, that's what's going to happen. So we're talking red or blue. For motorists, if it's red, we're dead. But if it's blue, the question is, do they have a clue? Now, of the three candidates, or the three shortlisted candidates from the Conservative Party, I would say in third, let's put him in third in my opinion anyway, is Mohammed Hussein. Now, of the three finalists, this one is a surprise candidate, the barrister Mohammed Hussein. And he's a surprise because A, nobody knew that he was actually up for this, and B, nobody knows who he is, honestly. I mean, there is less known about Mohammed Hussein than there is about Shahzad Sheikh. Come on! Are you telling me, how long have you been watching this channel? Are you telling me you don't know who Shahzad Sheikh is? Shahzad Sheikh, aka the brown car guy. It's me. That was a trick question. Now, the fact is that you cannot not find me online, right? I'm on pretty much every platform, and the moment that you Google brown car guy or Shahzad Sheikh brown car guy, you will definitely find me. This guy Mohammed Hussein, however, he doesn't appear to exist online. I mean, there's like 2 pictures of him. That's it. You know, he's not even on Twitter. Which politician doesn't have a Twitter account? I ask you. I mean, come on. So it's very hard to find out anything about him. So according to the BBC, he was born in Barisal in Bangladesh, and he came to the UK in 1995. In 2019, he became the first Bangladeshi-born criminal barrister ever to be appointed to Queen's Counsel, and presently he is leading barrister and King's Counsel. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty prestigious, and the guy's clearly very, very intelligent, that's for sure. However, I have absolutely no idea where he stands on ulez, and there's absolutely nothing online to indicate his opinion or his views on it. So I look forward to learning more about that. But, and if there's an opportunity to talk to him, if he would like to talk to me, that'd be great. Maybe he could turn up, or any of these candidates, it's an open invitation. Maybe they'll turn up to the next big protest in central London, which is going to be on the 25th of June at Marble Arch from about 12 o'clock. I hope to see you guys there as well. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk to any of these people there. I gotta be honest though, if I'm brutally honest, I think he's just been inserted as the token brown guy in this competition, and frankly, he's got no chance. So let's not dwell on him too much. Right, so let's move on to Daniel Korski. Now, he is a tech entrepreneur and a former number 10 aide to, well, actually, he was a special advisor to Prime Minister David Cameron. Now, astonishingly, as well as being a tech entrepreneur and doing all of those things, he was also a war correspondent in Libya, Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. And I've got to say, I've got the highest respect for journalists that go and cover wars. They are basically the superheroes of our trade. So big respect there. But then what about his transport policies? Well, he does oppose ulez, so that's great. And other ideas that he's had is including turning traffic lights off at night, so making them just flash amber, so that basically is supposed to improve traffic flow because it gives motorists the opportunity to decide whether they should go or not. I have seen this work in countries where I've been to and where I've lived. I've got to be honest with you, I think it's a little bit, sometimes it's not for the faint-hearted, you know, because some people are not really that confident when they come at traffic lights and they see it flashing. So I'm not necessarily sure that's the right approach, especially now when you can have sensors on the traffic lights that would tell you if there were cars waiting at an intersection and then there was no true traffic, so they should just be able to switch that to green. So I think that's how it should be working. He's also said that he will get rid of 20 miles per hour speed limits, and I think that's also great where they make no sense. And again, I agree with him there, and I think, to be honest, that's probably most of London's main roads and many of the outer London roads here. I've done a video on 20 miles per hour speed limits previously, go check that out. And I say the same thing. It's like, I'm totally for them where they make sense, like schools or hospitals and stuff like that. But if you just blanket bomb your area with 20 miles per hour speed limits, they don't necessarily make sense. And he's also going to allow motorists to use bike bike lanes where those lanes have caused unnecessary congestion. So for example, in London, we've seen cars being bottlenecked into one lanes or two lanes and causing more congestion and therefore more pollution because they've inserted these bicycle lanes that nobody appears to be using, or not enough people appear to be using. So that, again, it makes sense. So far so good. However, here's the rub. Korski apparently wants to replace the ulez expansion with smart road user charging instead. Basically, the dreaded paper mile, which I totally abhor as a restrictive infringement on our right to use our cars that we have already paid heavily for the privilege of owning and running. He claims that he would actually implement road charging more quickly than Han's proposal, using smart tech to track the journeys of cars. So unfortunately for me personally, that's a kind of a big red flag. Yeah, unless he wants to look at that and explain that more closely, yeah, I'm not keen on that. So let's move to the final, or the third person in that shortlist from the Conservative Party for their candidates for the next mayoral election, and this is Susan Hall. Now, you may know Susan Hall. You may have seen videos of her online going head-to-head with Sadiq Khan during those City Hall question sessions. She's pretty fearsome. She's from Harrow, which actually is just down the road from me. She's a councillor there. And don't forget, Harrow is actually one of the councils that is taking the ulez expansion to court. She's also been a member of the London Assembly since 2017. And on the Conservative Home website, she has written that it was under her leadership that they exposed Sadiq Khan's manipulation of the ulez consultation. As you remember, there was a lot of fiddling of responses that they got regarding that consultation. She also wrote that on ulez, I will stop the expansion on day one. In its place, I will set out a common sense environment plan that targets funding in areas that have higher levels of pollution. I will work with London boroughs rather than against them in tackling this issue. Also on Twitter, she posted, if I am mayor, I will scrap the ulez expansion on day one. It's nothing more than an unfair tax. There's a palpable feeling of anxiety across Greater London that hardworking people wondering how they are going to afford to replace their car. It's got to go. Well, I agree with that. I would like to hear her views on paper mile, LTNs and 15-minute cities and 20 mile per hour speed limits though. However, I do look forward to finding out more. So anyway, there you go. Those are the potentials lining up for the next London mayoral election, due to take place on the 2nd of May next year, that's 2024. Now keep in mind that this is about 8 months after the planned introduction of ulez, which happens on the 29th of August this year. So I reckon that one of the things that we need is some clarification from those candidates on when they say that they will stop the ulez expansion. Do they actually mean that they will reverse it if it's already happened? This is an important technicality, because it's often very difficult to reverse these things once they've already been rolled out. If they will do that, and that is, i.e. they will roll it back, then I continue to urge you all not to sell your non-ulez compliant cars and try to buy a new one at this time, because you're going to lose money on your old car and you're going to spend way too much on your next car. It's just not a good idea right now, and if it is just going to be reversed after 8 months, you might want to hold on to your car anyway. And don't forget, we're still hopeful that the judicial review, which is happening on the 4th of July, may stop or at least maybe delay the ulez expansion. Plus, as I alluded to earlier, I still suspect that Labour may themselves delay it in order to try and secure that win in next year's mayoral election. Anyway, let me know which is your preferred candidate. Let me know what you think of their positions on ulez. And also, let me know if you had the opportunity to put any questions to them, what would you ask them? So that if I find myself in that situation, then I'll be able to maybe do that on your behalf. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.
Brown card guy.
Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please hit the like button and share this video as well if you can. And while you're at it, check out these guys who also sponsor my content. I am deeply grateful to them because it helps me to buy new equipment, put fuel in the cars, and yes, buy a cup of coffee. You can do the same. Just go here or right here on YouTube. Just hit these 3 little dots down here and click on thanks. Make sure you're signed in first. My content is free. but this is how you can help me keep it that way. I may even send you a gift. Oh, by the way, watch this next.